Good
Yeah.
evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our show. You are here with Denis Kumar, live from Moscow, Russia, and Johan, live from London. Today, we want to talk a little bit about how the recent times have changed our habits, particularly in terms of teleworking, but not only working, but also teleactivities, learning, communicating online, and how we see this changing our way of living going forward. So, does this change what our past experience was like in terms of learning and education? And I want to start with you, Denis. So you studied abroad. You went to university in the UK. What do you think now is the value of an educational experience in another country versus nowadays where you can learn anything on the internet? How do you look back on that? And do you see it in a different light?
Okay, Augustine, yes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this interesting question. I think the value of being educated abroad is that I think once you're abroad, I think in any city, in any case, whether you study there or if you're working there, I think you're being put outside of your comfort zone. And especially, I think if you're living, if you're working or studying in another country for a sustained period of time, so I think you are forced to adapt to another environment, and it forces you outside of your comfort zone. So I think it makes you more flexible and more agile and more prepared to these unexpected disruptions, unexpected instances. So I think currently now it's very useful. I think looking back that I have studied abroad in countries such as the United Kingdom, one of the most multicultural countries in the world. So I think it has prepared me better. I'm speaking for myself. I feel it has prepared me better compared to other people who didn't have the privilege of studying abroad to this pandemic COVID-19. Because COVID-19 is in essence a disruption to our day-to-day lives. So I think I feel more in control of the situation. And I think one of the values that I think of studying abroad is that it makes you to plan and organize your time more effectively, because I think most of the people who study abroad, they are working part-time, whereas if you're studying in your home country, I don't think the percentage of people who are working at the same time as studying is as high as people who are studying abroad. Yeah, so I think working part-time and studying full-time throughout my bachelor degree course has taught me how to manage my time effectively, how to constantly work under pressure, and how to achieve results. And I think now, given that there is a pandemic, COVID-19, we're still working from home, but at the same time, we have to deliver, we have to perform, we have to achieve our company's objectives. And I think, it has prepared me, I think, quite well, yeah, in terms of studying abroad.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that answer. You mentioned interesting things like the idea of stepping outside of your comfort zone when you go abroad, developing a certain sense of resilience and adaptability. Do you think that these skills, do you think we will have a chance to keep developing these kinds of traits if we live in a virtual world of teleworking and telelearning? Because when you're in your apartment or your home, it's hard to step outside of your comfort zone.
I think we will have to keep developing this traits primarily in terms of IT side of the things. Because, for instance, now we're having a conversation via Zoom software. And to be honest with you, this is the first time I have actually used the Zoom software. Otherwise, I wouldn't have used it. So I think in terms of keeping up to date with this IT developments, I think how to use different applications softwares. I think that's the primary trait that I think we will have to be abreast of. I think other than that, I don't see much room, much space for developing. I think if you're working like from home, I think from my perspective, I could be wrong. Maybe some of you, either you or Johan,
Yeah.
add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add on that point actually. I think, as you said, we'll have to adapt with what's available, and I think the tech is what's going to really accelerate the development of apps, or anything that we demand now with the working from home way of things. And yeah, so one of these elements, I think it ties up nicely with like 5G as well, because I mean now everybody's at home, the bandwidth might be suffering, so we need higher speed to compensate for that. So 5G is coming in just as we speak. I don't know when, but yeah, there's already mobiles that are ready. And also for other things as well, like AI and
Yeah.
many jobs that will rely or will benefit from this higher speed, which is is very, very fast compared to what we have. It would enable new robots or some machinery that potentially can be now developed from home now more than ever, and it doesn't require you physically going to an office or speaking to anyone. It's just you in front of the screen developing the programs, and then maybe having a chat with your colleagues about certain elements of the programming. That's more or less how I see it. And then you're always going to have people from the robot side. I know that logistics is going to benefit greatly from this 5G. I don't know the details, but yeah, this is already happening in manufacturing, where you see robots are taking parts from the warehouse to the production line just in time, that sort of thing. So a lot of jobs are going to go just because of this. Is the next big thing. It will save time. It will, you don't need the personnel who you pay a salary to. And there will be some initial investment, but the return investment is probably very attractive. And I'm sure that there are companies out there that will come up with amazing solutions.
Yes, and I also wanted to add quickly, sorry, before my thought goes away, because I think me and Johan have identified the skills, but I think there are two types of skills. I think there are soft skills and there are hard skills. So I think what myself and Johan have mentioned, we primarily talked about hard skills, but I think there is a soft skill that we can develop greatly by working from home or working more remotely, is that I think we must be able to work under less supervision, under less direction, and with a limited amount of information. Because if you're working in the office, you have your boss sitting in your office or sitting in another cabinet, so you can go to him at any time and ask for any clarification to get more things to do. So you'll get instant feedback and you will get instant order or instant direction. But whereas you're working remotely, I think you will have to make more independent decisions, and you will have to rely on the more limited information. So I think this is skill that I think we will have to develop.
Okay, so on the one hand, there's this new world will require a major skills update, especially in tech. But on the other hand, there are soft skills, which, as you mentioned, is working autonomously, independently, and I guess this might sound like a continuation of what you were talking about as what the original purpose of your education abroad is to step outside of your comfort zone and to find your own way, in the same way that you are teleworking. Johan, you also have an international background. Can you share, aside from skills, how you see the value of learning in a new environment and with people versus what is possible now. So learning on your own and remotely and digitally.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, first of all, to echo what Dennis said regarding being at home and that the challenge that an opportunity that presents us. I think you said quite right, Dennis, regarding the there's more autonomy required or will be required because even you can grab the phone and call your boss. It's not the same feeling that you just
Exactly.
have it. So you are probably less likely to get the phone and call that person that you need help from. And on the other hand, that might push you to make decisions even even everything is not perfect, but you're gonna have to make decisions more quickly in order to go to the next stage or whatever you're doing. So potentially we're gonna be more driven to make decisions with less information. That also means that we're gonna uh, sometimes we tendency to overthink. Maybe that will be scaled back a little bit, and potentially we're gonna see a faster evolution, faster pace of things just happening, and a bit more objectivity. But I was gonna say now regarding my experience, and yeah, it's interesting you say that because just in general, I had a conversation with somebody at work, and I was telling him my story. I come from Venezuela, I settled in the UK. Now my wife is Chinese, and I've lived in many cities in the UK. And this chap, he's from England, and he basically, yeah, he was telling me about his grandfather, who has been together with his grandmother, or the spouse, for like 50 years. Life is just gone, and yeah, it's just been in the same routine. And yeah, it just seemed by contrast, it made me feel like I've lived like, wow, I have the opportunity to live a lot more, be exposed to different environments. And yeah, whereas other people might find that a bit daunting, this is something that, yeah, luckily for me, I was not in control of when I moved to the UK because I was underage and I just followed my family. And I don't know, so just thinking back, I think obviously now I would probably think about, okay, if I want to move to a new country, what are the pros and cons? I will analyze more. But then when I look back, I just moved from Venezuela to UK just like that. I wasn't even involved in any decisions. Well, they were taken on my behalf, and I capitalized on everything that I've been able to learn, including going to university, developing my skills, my English further, and having to adapt to a new culture, like the UK is, which I feel I've done successfully. But always maintaining my essence, because I'm obviously from another country, and yeah, but respecting the laws and adapting, yeah, to how life is in the UK, for which I, I had to make a test and
By the
everything.
way,
And
by
I'm
the way,
like,
Sir Augustine, before we change to the next subtopic, I think yes, it's very important. You mentioned that you always try to maintain your essence, and similarly to that, I had once conversation with my aunt in the UK because I was speaking about should I have a British accent or shall I try to make my English as perfect as British people speak English? But my aunt said to me, Dennis, don't worry, there is no need for you to have a British accent. In fact, it's nice that you have like Russian accent or maybe other accent because it's always nice to have your identity. But as long as people understand you, they don't ask you to repeat things all the time. I think you're fine. So there is no need to strive to copy to be 100% as native people in terms of speaking. Yeah, so this is something irrelevant to the point. I just wanted to quickly add.
yeah, adds to our uniqueness. I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to maintain who we are, really. Yeah.
Yeah, so this leads to an interesting topic, considering that all of us have international backgrounds. I'm sure you've had this question of identity that has emerged in your lives. For example, Denis, you are saddled between three different worlds, between India, Russia, and the UK. And I think, Johan, it's the same for you. It's Venezuela, Spain, UK, and China.
Correct.
So how, between these different worlds, how do you find a sense of gravity, and how, and or do you even think that that's what you need? Do you need to feel like you have roots, or can you feel like you can go from place to place?
Hmm. Yeah, so I can start with that question. I think that I don't have that feeling that I need to be rooted anywhere. However, I do like to have a place I can call home, and I don't really want to think about moving again. I've moved enough already inside the UK. So I mean that's very contradictory, but what I want to say is that yeah, if I need to go tomorrow somewhere else, then I'll happily do it. And if I root too much, then it just makes it even more difficult to have the ability to say, okay, I'm gonna go. And I had that thought already cross my mind because obviously my wife is in China, and yeah, there's been the possibility, the conversation that okay, why don't I go to China for 2 years, for instance? And then I just thought about okay, everything I need to do in order to make that happen, which really in my head, yeah, I feel excited about that prospect of going for 2 years to China. Why not? What am I gonna do? I'm not sure, but I'm sure there will be something that I can figure out once I'm there. But more importantly is how I'm gonna close or leave things in standby. That I can leave in peace, knowing that everything's taken care of, and then when as I come back, everything, yeah, I have my house, I'll have everything ready to just continue my life in the UK. So that is the most challenge, I think, question that would prevent me from leaving, rather than seeking gravity. I think gravity, that's like the law of the universe. Is naturally, you will be. So the longer you
Okay,
stay
by
somewhere,
gravity,
I
I mean
think.
like a center,
Oh, a
like a
center,
place where
not
you
like
can,
rooted.
yeah.
Uh-huh. I see, I see. So yeah, I feel yeah. Currently, my center is the UK,
Mm.
but that potentially can change, and I'm not planning to. But I just leave it open though that it can change at any time, and yeah, then it should not hit me that hard emotionally, or
And
I just take the appropriate action to make it happen.
and let me also ask you, you are also between three different languages. So English in the UK, Chinese in China, maybe if you are learning it,
Mm,
but also Spanish in Spain and Venezuela. So
yes.
how do you identify yourself in relation to your native language? And how do you uh, uh, make it fit with where your
Mm.
center is now, which is the UK English.
Yeah, it's a good question to explore to see how can I make it fit, because currently my Spanish is just limited to my family communication. Okay, it's not much required at my job unless we have some, like where I work at the moment, we have a plant in Mexico. So yeah, I have spoken Spanish to some colleagues, but I feel like English is the main one that is revolves around my activities, my life, my job. And considering we live in a globalized world at the moment, and I would consider English to be, yeah, going forward. Even if I go to China and have a job there, then probably English will prevail. That's in my head how I feel things are.
And how do you relate back to your native country, Venezuela? Is it someplace that you have left and never going back, or is it somewhere that you still very much
No,
identify with?
to be honest, I don't identify myself. I mean, I identify myself from being Venezuelan, and I probably am, but I don't see myself going back anytime soon.
You haven't been there
And
for 14 years, yeah, I think. Or
yeah,
14,
2007.
okay, yeah, 13 years, yeah, I think.
Yeah, so we have an apartment there and everything, but I don't see myself going there now, even on holidays. A risk.
So you've
And
closed your door to where you've come from. and you
Currently,
obviously
yes, yeah, and but for the foreseeable future, because I don't see that we're turning around, for better economic outlook,
yeah, there's also that.
politically. Yeah, so that doesn't make me want to go back. Every news I see is just not attractive. It doesn't make it attractive to go at currently. And in 10 years, maybe, but I need to start seeing some improvement, which I don't see. I haven't
Yeah.
seen since never.
But you
Since I was
left
born
in
in.
you
Yeah.
left in 2007, and that's
Mhm.
before the crisis, which was in
Well,
2014.
I mean, I always saw crisis. Even when I was there, I could see like prices going up, some sort of difficulties. I was sort of in a
Instability.
unstable, yeah. I mean, I was in a sort of a bubble because I was quite lucky to be like middle, you know, to be middle class. But actually, my school was a lot of people were like high class, so I couldn't see the crisis in there. But at a personal level, I would say that, yeah, there was a point where, yeah, obviously my dad lost his job, like many thousands of professionals, and that created some instability. Like since 2003, it was quite unstable, for as a family group. And yeah, and then that led to us leaving. But yeah, in that process, I could see simple things like prices rising, and yeah, just basically limiting ourselves. Yeah, we never went out to eat that often, and yeah, you could see that there was a sense of, okay,
Do
let's
you
not.
think that as a result of this experience, do Venezuelans like yourself have a sense of national pride? Or are you more, do you identify more yourself by the need to have better governance? And so you have a kind of universalist uh,
Yeah.
identity.
I think people are quite disappointed with the government. Like, if, the people that are outside the country that are very successful, most of them that who have rooted. So obviously you have everything, in terms of people that have left Venezuela, because a lot of people are coming back, but some of them have managed to create their own successful companies and be entrepreneurs and very successful. So I think they see that they get frustrated with with the political situation, and there are a lot of incentives groups outside of the country that are just focused on how we can help the people, how we can help the situation, financially speaking, sending goods and that sort of thing. But politically speaking, I think a lot of people are frustrated, and I don't see any. Yeah, this is why I don't see any hope of things improving in that front. But yeah, there will be a need of a leader, and there were even talks about, the biggest company, Polar, is the biggest company of Venezuela, privately owned, and even there was the, the some discussion that the leader of that company, surname Mendoza, could potentially be the president, because I think people are more concerned about the economy. We're such a potential. We have so much potential with the oil that we have.
Yes.
The country has to be managed correctly. So they were looking up at people that have managed correctly their own businesses, like this guy. But I don't think he wants to get. He doesn't want to get involved. Apparently, he was like halves with Chavez, halves with the opposition. So it makes it a bit murky, and maybe himself he doesn't want to be political figure anyway. Even his company, he has a lot to do with his company, which is losing money anyway. And yeah, he is based now outside of the country, and just doing his business activities.
So
Yeah.
let's say that Venezuela is run again by good managers who get the economy back on track.
I think that's a priority.
Would you yourself feel more like an urge to return, and would you feel more Venezuelan in that sense, or will you continue living where you are
I
and
think
continue building a life where you are? And go to China, perhaps?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult question. I think there will be obviously the potential for me to go back to Venezuela, but given the fact that I'm married with my wife who is Chinese, then I think the likelihood is less and less as time goes by, because I'm either going to be in the UK or in China, just
So
for
do you
language reasons. I think there are other
reasonably
impediments there now that will enable me to go back. even
I
if
think
there's a
salary wise, you have to see, we have to compare how much
yeah,
salary you
yeah.
get in the UK there as
I
well.
think there will be a big sacrifice, even if you do it for my
Yes.
country, which it might make sense. If all these groups I know that there's a lot of people outside organized discussing topics. How can we, how can we, so they have like an agenda, and they do forums in France and different areas of the world. This experts get together, and even I know people from my school involved in this, where they discuss what can we do to bring the economy up with what it is at the moment, the mess that it is. But obviously, it's still changing. It's still, it's still going down, and I don't know. The agenda is probably changing all the time. But my father, he was in the oil industry, and there's always a promise that when we can regain control of the oil estate company, then every single one of you will be welcome to come back to rebuild what was
Yeah.
once the leader in the economy, in oil production, and as the biggest aspiration any engineer could aspire to, graduating from the universities in Venezuela.
Now the oil price is so low that, and it might not even go back up.
Yeah,
So the economy would have to probably be based on
something else.
something else, and same thing goes for Russia.
Yes.
And
Too much
I
oil
guess that's where we
dependent.
could turn to Denis. I also want
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
dig
Dennis,
into your questions, which
apparently in Russia, the purchasing power, I was reading something about, the purchasing power suffered. So, people are getting the same salary, but now
Yes,
that
because
represents,
the value of ruble has diminished in relation to dollar. Yeah, so
is that
basically,
because of the oil?
partly because of the oil. Well, it's because of the COVID-19 and because of the oil. But I think oil has been more decisive factor. Yes, oil has been more decisive, but relatively, yeah, because the
Wow.
economy is closed now, all of it. Yeah, so I think it also played a big role. Yeah, but main thing is, yes, it's about the very low oil prices. Yeah, yeah, so purchasing power is
well,
very low. Yeah.
Russia has been quite resilient, much more resilient than the last oil price drop this time around.
Yes, but I think
Oh, okay.
also, yes, I think it's partly because we already developed a immunity against sanctions. So following the sort of, I would use the term reunification of Crimea with Russia. So, after that, West imposed a lot of sanctions. So I think Russia has learned how to deal with those sanctions, So I think this crisis, is manageable for Russia more effectively, more efficiently compared to other countries, I think, in terms of
Yeah.
financial implications, economic implications.
Now, going back to the question about identity,
Yes,
Denis, you also triangulate between three different worlds.
yes,
So you had a Indian father, Russian mother. You lived in both countries, and you also lived, studied, and worked in the UK. Uh, why have you chosen to build your home in Moscow and in Russia at this moment?
well, at this moment, I think, not just at this moment, I think it was five years ago, because I lived in the UK overall for 7 years. 4 years it was my bachelor's degree, and 3 years I was working in the United Kingdom. But what I found in the UK is that if you don't have a British passport, then it's very difficult to find a job of your choice, because if you're not at that time, if you were not a citizen of the European Union, then the employer must have provided you with a sponsorship. And because it was such a almost impossible task for me to get a sponsorship by the employer, then I found that I wouldn't be able to realize myself career-wise in the United Kingdom. So I could have stayed in the UK just for the sake of living in the United Kingdom, but I wasn't able to realize myself professionally. And for me to realize myself professionally is the most important thing right now, at least when I'm still unmarried. I'm still very much enthusiastic about personal and professional development, I think for me, Russia seemed to be like a natural choice to continue my personal and professional development. And also, after I have been living in the UK for some time, I have developed a great interest in the news, current affairs in the field of economics, politics, business. So I think it was a natural choice for me to pursue a master's degree in one of the best universities in Russia in the field that I loved the most at that time, that is international relations. And after I had finished my master's degree, I think Russia is the best country where I can continue to realize myself in the most effective manner. So in other words, this is the country where I can make the most impact in terms of my professional and personal experience. Yeah, so for the time being, and I think Russia will always be my home, but coming back to your question about the gravity, I think the UK will always be a special country for me, but I think in my case, UK has served its purpose for me being its like resident, because I have acquired life experience, academic experience, you know, I have developed friends, colleagues, etc. So I think it has served its purpose. So I think for me, it's time to move further. Yeah, so I see Russia is the place for me right now to solidify my professional experience, get more knowledge, and perhaps, you know, we'll see what happens. And with regards to India, I think it's mainly to do with my relatives. Yeah, so I'm keeping in touch with them like on a day-to-day basis. I'm seeing what's happening in the country. Yeah, and I feel really happy to visit it like twice or three times a year. So it makes me feel very happy. Just to summarize everything, so I feel currently most at home at Russia, but India and the UK will be always special countries for me, and I will always be in contact with people, relatives in those countries, and monitor the economic, political, and cultural, social situations, yeah, in those two countries. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. You were saying, so there were these legal obstacles for you to stay in the UK, mainly in terms of the visa.
Yes.
Did you find that there were other kinds of challenges of living there, and were there yes, did you experience other challenges
Yes.
that
Yeah, I think challenges is one of the key challenge was for me because as you guys, you're my friends, you know myself, I'm very much passionate about politics, civil service, etc. So for me, living in the UK was like basically having this paradise, living in a paradise, but not being able to taste the apples that are grown in that paradise, because you know I couldn't work for the British government, for the British MP, for
See, yeah.
yes, yeah, in diplomacy, because I'm the citizen of the Russian Federation. So for me, it was a constant sort of constant sense of not being able to satisfy my professional sort of desires, but not being able to pursue the role that I like the most. Yeah, so I think it was more actually of a psychological issue, I think, as well, because I have been also following the domestic politics of the United Kingdom for quite some time, and I'm the type of person that I always want to play an active role. So I wasn't able to contribute, for the country as well, for the UK, by being involved in the politics of the country. Yeah, so this was like more of a psychological challenge for me, that I enjoy the things, but I'm not able to pursue those things. Yeah, so this is something that I reflected upon, and that caused me to come back to Russia. And the same, by the way, will be applicable to India as well, because although I have I'm partially Indian, but I'm not able to also realize myself professionally in India. Yeah.
And let me ask you, why do you why do you describe the UK as the place where the apples and the fruits? Because
yes,
I guess you mean that in the sense that they're the opportunities for the people in the country. But every country has their own apples and fruits
Yes.
that you can participate in.
I think because I meant because I think mainly of the transparency and how information was very accessible. You know, you just have to make a little effort, and all the information was so accessible to you. It's very open society, I think, and also the role that media plays. Because I have learned so much by just reading newspapers on a day-to-day basis. And just to give you an example as well, because you know, in the UK you have House of Commons. It's like a parliament. And you also have in Russia parliament, you know, Duma as well. In Russia, even I'm a Russian citizen, I'm not able to go inside the Duma. You know, I need to have a special permission to book a tour there. Whereas in the United Kingdom, you can just visit House of Commons without any pre-booked tour. You know, you just have to, yeah, just you can show up and just, you know, visit the tower, a House of Commons, and attend debate. You know, and yes, I found it very good because everything was so transparent and open as well. Even the court cases. I don't know, many of you will remember in 2012, I think there was a court case between Roman Abramovich and Boris Berezovsky. Yeah, you must have known about this. Yeah, so they were settling their disputes in the High Court of London. So even then I was able to attend those proceedings, you know, openly, and nobody questioned what my nationality is, you know, so I also learned so much by that. So when I describe this as a paradise, because I meant that so things, on the one hand, they are so open to me, but on the other hand, they're so close to me because I'm not able to pursue them professionally.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the UK was it was a model of society that you admire, but you were disappointed that you couldn't participate more in it.
Yeah, participate by working, by being
by
part.
working.
Yeah, by working in this society, by working meaningfully. Yeah, because I think it's a issue that is faced by many immigrants because they live in a good country. Let's say, well, when I say, I wouldn't say the good country, but I think when they live in the political Western country, I think they're happy to live in this country, but at the same time they're working in odd jobs. For instance, like being a security guard, working as a retail cashier, you know, working in a restaurant as a waiter. I'm not trying to demean those jobs, but I don't think they're meaningful jobs for those who have degrees and who want to sort of, you know, who want to realize themselves. Yeah. So I wasn't able to participate by doing a job that's more related to my professional and academic interests. Yeah.
So, Johan, you are also someone who came to the UK from the outside. Do you also experience these kinds of barriers, and how do you feel about them? Do they disappoint you, or did you overcome them?
Okay, so you mean barriers in terms of realizing my potential in the UK as a foreigner, or?
Yes, I guess in as Denis was saying, that even if he very much uh, admired
Yes.
the way the UK is organized, he always felt like an outsider who couldn't fulfill himself by working in the system 100%.
I see.
Do you have the same feeling as an outsider who came to the UK?
Well, I mean, I can just think about, you know, maybe politics, and I can also think about law. There are certainly some degrees that are dependent on who you are, and if you are coming to the country. I know, for example, law, you need to study again, pretty much. I mean, certain degrees, because of the laws in that country you're going to, if you come from a degree somewhere else, it's not the same. And yeah, the opportunities might be different, and there might be some obstacles like you mentioned, which are either difficult to overcome or not at all viable to pursue because it's just, yeah, it's just the way it is really. I'm in engineering, and I believe that for engineers, I think the door is wide open because I think it's
Yes.
a mix of creativity and how can you make life easier to the people, the population. So that's where, innovation then is trailing any potentially new solution to a problem. And yeah, it will depend then on your idea, your drive to make that happen, the funds, where are they coming from to make that a reality, especially if you're gonna, yeah, if we're talking about big volumes, then you will need that investment, that drive, that team of people to make this a reality. And I think this is possible, but it's not necessarily, I think you have to be powered by a dream you have to make this happen, and yeah, go through all the obstacles that you will encounter, like in any big feat, uh, which is, for example, to set up a company, to deal with all that side of things, which that's why you need a team to deal with all those intricacies of making, a successful product a reality into
Yeah.
the marketplace. I don't think it's, yeah, I think that the limit in that sense is only in your mind. And I don't think that poses an obstacle to engineering, but again, it's not necessarily the direction I want to take. I'm partaking in the engineering industry as a professional in the area of quality, so this is what I have experience on and continue to develop on that. And yeah, depending on the organization I am, then it will depend how I realize or climb the ladder, if you want, in my professional career, in the ways of, okay, what are the next steps to offer growth in my chosen path, which again will depend on the company and also a bit of research, preparation, certifications, which in engineering is
Yes.
always a benefit, because of the trainings, and also we have things like chartership in engineering, which is not essential, but
It's like a
it will give
professional
you the
body of
edge.
engineering. Yeah.
Professional body,
Professional.
yeah. We
Yes.
got a lot of professional bodies. Anybody
Yes.
can belong to
Yes.
that as long as you have a degree, and then develop your own CPD, continual professional development,
So
to
it's your professional
get that.
portfolio, it gives you credit.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And I don't think, yeah, I think, so anybody that would like to go really into that length can do so, regardless of your background in
But
the
I
UK.
think a difference between myself and Jochen was that in terms of obstacles is primarily or are based on the legal status, because obviously I believe Jochen already had his British citizenship, so for him
Yeah,
opportunities were unlimited. Sky is the limit for him even right now, and I think Jochen can even go into the British politics. You can even become
as a
an
British
MP.
citizen.
Yes,
No
because you
way.
already
Yeah,
bring
okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So you have no limits. But for me, I was never a British citizen. I only had citizenship of Russia, and Russia is not part of the European Union. So I think that was the only, I would say, the only major impediment that I had faced. But I think even that has taught me how to look for jobs and how to cope under pressure when you're looking for job. And it has taught me that you have to appreciate the job that you have right now, because I think it's not easy to find a job anyway, but in the country where your legal status is limited, I think it's twice more difficult. So I think it just
Mhm.
makes me more sort of
Yeah,
more grateful for what I have. And yeah, it has also made me
that's
more
good.
resilient. Yeah, and also
Mm,
towards job rejections as well, because I have developed immunity system when I get rejected. For instance, when I'm looking for
that's
jobs,
good.
because yeah, when I was looking for jobs, there were so many rejections. Well, that's the nature of life. There are always challenges, and I think our purpose is to overcome them. That's how it makes you, I think, greater and more competent, stronger person
Yeah. And one way to overcome it is by confronting. So,
by
that
confronting.
fear
Yes,
that we all have really of rejection, the best cure for that is to confront it, feel it
yes,
firsthand. Okay, how does it feel? And then just decide that, okay, this can actually make me or break me. And yeah, eventually, as you continue to seek for more rejections, or the approval, the acceptances
Yes.
will appear. Even it
Yes.
can be painful until you get there. But yeah, it's not a comfortable place to be, and I totally understand, because
Yes, and that's how
I
you
think it
get to
goes
the
against
next
human
level.
nature. It goes against human nature. I think it's that
Yes.
fear of but exactly. But eventually, you can get to the next level, and like you said, you develop that immunity. So that is a good sign of progress.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
good.
But one thing as well, I wanted to also to mention to Augustine, because I think it's interesting point to mention, is because I have been looking for job. Well, I'm working right now, but when I was looking for jobs in Russia, and when I was looking for jobs in the United Kingdom, I think the professional ethics of recruitment, I think, is far better in the United Kingdom, because I think 90% of the jobs that I had applied in the UK, 90% of the times I got the feedback, even though I wasn't successful. So they would always ring me back. They would write me by email, like, sorry, unfortunately, you were not selected, but we will retain your CV on our file. No, but unfortunately in Russia, I think 80% there is no feedback. Even if you attend interviews, uh, then after that it's just lost, communication is finished. So I found that UK is a good country for benchmarking this aspect. I would say even 99% there's no feedback if you're not successful in Russia. Yeah.
So, if we tie this back to how we started this conversation about
Learning. Yeah.
education, learning
Yeah.
in abroad, in a pre-COVID world. In a pre-COVID world, Denis was able to immerse himself in the UK and have a reference when he moved back to Russia. And Johan, you also had an international experience. As we go forward, where globalization is uncertain, human mobility is uncertain, human contact will be uncertain. How do you carry these past experiences forward, which are not possible today, and we don't know how they will play out in the future?
Well, I
Yes.
will answer it I will give a short answer. I think I will try to assess them in a, how can I say, adequately, in a calm and systematically and analytically. So, for instance, for some people who didn't have the privilege of being educated abroad, for them these things like uncertainty will be surprises. But for me, it is no longer surprise. It's just another. It's a reality. It's a fact of life, and for me, it's a challenge, and I will just have to confront it. So basically, I would take it calmly and systemically. So I would analyze the situation, and I will try to formulate solutions and how to move forward. And also, one of the most powerful traits that I have learned in the UK is being positive, because I think if you have positive thinking, then I think if you're optimist, I think it's much better to look forward even to the uncertainty, because I think if you lose somewhere, then you will gain in another place. Yeah, so for me, I'll take it. I'll embrace that uncertainty, because I will always try to look an opportunity for myself in a good way, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so you take it all in. And Johan, same question to you. How do you carry and remember the experiences you had, the international experiences you had pre-COVID, into a post-COVID world where these things might not even be done in the same way as they were done before?
I mean, I personally think that we should be very observant of what things are changing. And obviously, know ourselves the best we can, so we can then find a link in the changes, and then find, so this brings an opportunity really to see how we can fit in this new mold, and adapt, not only adapt but also um, offer more of us, into this new world. But yeah, that will require us to be well informed of the changes and see how we can fit in.
Okay, so adaptability going forward. So
Yeah.
with these comments, would any of you have any last words, any last thoughts that you'd like to share?
Well, I think it's very important that we emphasize the word adapt, and also like try, as Johan said, try to give more of ourselves. So basically, I think what Johan meant is try the best we can in order to embrace the changes. But I think also we have to remember who we are, and we have to remember our values as well. Because we shouldn't just copy every trend. We shouldn't embrace each and every trend that is coming along the way of this uncertainty. I think also from my perspective, I would be conservative. I would be like sort of a liberal conservative. So basically, I will keep to myself all the core values that I have. That's the conservative side of me. And the liberal side of me is that I will embrace the best of the trends that will be coming along the way of this uncertainty. Yeah, and we shouldn't just blindly follow this uncertainty. I think we should use our own judgment, and we should always try how the new trends, how the new way of life will affect us, and we should ensure that it doesn't affect us negatively. Or if it does affect us negatively in such a way that we are not able to overcome it, I think we should at least mitigate those negative factors. Yeah, so that's my last word. And then at the end, I would like to ask you, Augustine, a bonus question, as I did last time. But I'll let Johan, first of all, to have last word.
Yeah, no. So I think to finalize, I think this was a really good conversation. Leaving COVID aside, but inspired by the COVID and
Yes,
this new setting. We're all at home. I think the important thing to remember is, going back to, we shouldn't lose our essence. We should know who we are. We should take the opportunity to learn more about ourselves, and be observant of the opportunities, and not just be brought down by the negativity, of which there is a lot. It's important to just have use all our senses to discover the opportunities, of which there are a lot. They always say, there's opportunities in times of crisis. So why not see it from that point of view? And just really embrace it, be positive, and stay healthy, learn about whatever you want to learn, and basically keep going forward, learning. I think every day is a school day, like they say. So we should really focus on that as well, our education, but not professional only, also education about ourselves.
yeah. Yes, Agustin, and if I may, because obviously, thank you very much for those nice questions, deep questions that you have asked us. It was very good for us to answer. And I also wanted to ask you the similar question that you asked us, because as me and myself, and Johan mentioned that we have three worlds, if you like, three different countries, but you have more countries than us. Like you obviously, in your case, you have gravity between Russia right now, Brussels, the United States, and I believe China to an extent also. And I wanted to ask you not where you feel at home the most, but in which country do you feel you can right now, or in the next 2 to 3 years, realize yourself professionally the most, or to put it differently, in which country can you make the most impact in terms of your professional experience and knowledge? Yeah, considering that you have lived already in Russia for almost a year, I believe, and you have studied here for 2 years in Russia. And obviously Brussels, the United States, you know very well those countries. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's a question that I'm always asking myself, how do I bridge the different geographies?
Yes.
I think for me, I've always been interested in challenging myself in a new environment, and working in Russia is that kind of challenge.
Right. Yeah.
Because I just feel that just staying in the US and never going outside, or staying in Belgium and never going outside, I guess that's not for me, when there's plenty of opportunities around the world, and I feel like when I am in a country like Russia or Kyrgyzstan professionally,
yes,
I grow much more
rapidly
and much faster than I do
yeah.
in Western countries, which in my experience tend to be more saturated.
Saturated
here,
means it's very competitive. Means very competitive in terms of getting a good job. Yeah, is that what you mean? Saturated.
Yeah, that it's competitive to get a good job, and that you stay, that many people are on the same
yeah
path. It's I guess I felt that going off the beaten path is a good way to develop myself, and there's no more off the beaten path than to, for example, work in Kyrgyzstan and then get a master's degree in Moscow.
Is that what you did?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Wow.
And by daring to do that, it really pays off, because now I'm able to work in a role that is very interesting, that makes me learn something new every day, that challenges me and makes me grow. So I'm glad that I could be here, and that I made that bet, and hopefully when I go back home one day, I'll be able to find my place.
But your home is Brussels, I think, predominantly, and the reason why you work in Russia is that you want to grow more rapidly, you want to develop faster and more effectively, and by stepping out of the comfort zone meaning the US or the European Union, so basically you're investing in your long-term human capital, not just looking for the short-term perks, benefits, but it's like a long-haul career journey for you.
You can put it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because what I do now, I don't think I ever would have been able to do if I stayed in one place.
Yes. Yeah.
The same place.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I concur with that approach. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always making decisions, and the decisions are shaping our life. Yeah, so it's like unlimited. Yeah, I mean, so each decision we make is taking us to a place that otherwise we don't know. It's completely yeah. It's each person is living their own journey, but then when you look back, then where you are now is a combination of all the decisions
Yes,
have
and
been
also
made.
think it's a skill in itself to make a decision, because it's not easy to make a decision. And I think it takes courage, it takes
Courage.
analytical thinking, it takes everything really to make an important decision. So I think it's not easy. So I think, yeah, but I think for me, my experience has shown that every decision I took were good decisions, I think, so far. And I think if I didn't take, if I haven't taken them, I would have regretted. Yeah, so I think it's always good to make bold decisions. I think it makes your life interesting, and yeah, it makes you grow further, I think. Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Agustin.
Thank you,
Yeah,
ladies
good
and
insight.
gentlemen.
So yeah, do you want to make a quick finish or not? Or there is no need?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad you listened to us up until this point. If you like the conversations, don't hesitate to get in touch and join our weekly hour. We'd love to foil different ideas and personal experiences from all over the world. So thank you and goodbye.